Welcome to 101.1 FM WBRULP WFOOLP WVVXLP Providence. I'm your co-host, Dhruv
And I'm your co-host, Alejandro Jackson.
And this is the Outta Pocket Podcast,
where we pull conversation topics out of our pocket.
And occasionally go out of pocket.
So on today's show, we are continuing our segment that we call the Comic Culture Catch-Up. This is Volume 2 of the Comic Culture Catch-Up. And on today's show, we just want to talk about some of our favorite, well, I'd say, to be honest, I would argue some of our favorite, and we'll get into that throughout the episode. But also just, what's going on in sort of the comic culture as of late, more particularly towards film and like the movies and TV shows, because I feel like that's what's more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think comic books in general are not the most exhilarating comic book runs are going on right now. But anyways, that's all tangential. So yeah, we just wanted to talk about Moon Knight, Thor: Love and Thunder, and then Doctor Strange. A review of, essentially a review of Doctor Strange.
And we will give a heads up. For the stuff that's already come out, Moon Knight and Doctor Strange, there will be spoilers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool, yeah. So okay, so let's hop right into it. So yeah, first we wanted to talk about Moon Knight, which is Marvel's latest six-episode TV show.
I gotta be honest, like right off the bat, I don't know how I feel about the whole 6-episode thing.
I don't either, because like, what's up? Like, why WandaVision gets? I know why WandaVision got special treatment, which we'll get into that later. But like, the fucking Winter Soldier didn't get 9 episodes. Versus motivated? Hey, yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Chill, calm down.
I'm joking.
I don't know. I feel like they're doing all these like limited series, like runs with like 6 episodes. How many did Loki get? Loki got
6.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. Well. Yeah. I don't know what the deal is. I feel like. I mean, understandably, making TV is expensive.
Not only that, but I feel like, it was kind of, because I remember Kevin Feige, the executive producer for Marvel, he was all like, yeah, you won't need the TV shows to watch the movies. That was cap. That was straight cap. Cappery, bro. I would argue you do need them. I don't think you need to, like, I think there are certain episodes of, like for example, like, What If? There are certain episodes you could have missed and been fine for, like, the movies. But, like, I don't think you could have seen WandaVision. I don't think you could have seen Doctor Strange without having seen WandaVision.
Or at least having an idea of what happened with the plot.
I know. If you have no idea, then you're lost. But anyways, we're digressing.
Yeah, we're digressing pretty fast.
Moon Knight.
We're going out of pocket.
So yeah, it was the latest 6-episode Marvel TV show, and I personally I liked it. I
liked it too.
I will say that, and you and I both agreed on this when we spoke about it, but like the final episode, the sort of conclusion to it was, it did feel a bit Marvel.
It always had like
Marvel-like.
Third act, like everything from like even the greats like Black Panther. Fall victim to the Marvel third act trap, where it's just like you're doing all this character work and all this dialogue and all this building, and you're making this compelling movie, and then you have like a half an hour break for just like big CG battle, and it's just like action.
Yeah.
Which, like, honestly, I get why people criticize it. I personally don't mind a lot of the time, because like sometimes seeing cool explosions is like,
brings out the inner child in us all.
Yeah, for real. But it felt a little just like, I don't know, it felt a little dry with Moon Knight. And maybe that has to do with the whole like 6-episode thing. Like, you're running on such a limited time frame, and Marvel is sort of like, the execs are demanding that you put in like this big action sequence, you know?
To be devil's advocate, though, I will argue that the third act sort of CGI battle Moon Knight did contribute to character development.
That is true.
And I guess, first, I guess I want to give my general takes on the show, and you can give yours, and then we will sort of talk about of the more I- spoilery.
Yeah.
Is that even? Anyways, it's not a word, but like stuff. So I thought it was creative. I thought it was really creative.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I feel like there was enough of a mystery aspect of it throughout the entire show, but not. So in my opinion, I think WandaVision had too much mystery. Or like I was.
You think so?
I get because like the first few episodes were a little, bruh. But
I feel differently about the first few episodes of WandaVision, but carry on.
yeah, so I mean, I understand, I guess, why they were there, but like, but I don't know. I think there was enough mystery. I think there was enough, sort of intrigue into the character of Mark Spector and the main character. Oscar Isaac, the actor who plays him, amazing. Like straight, like did really well. And so I think what sort of makes this show good and what I guess saves this show is like Oscar Isaac and the character of Mark Spector / Stephen Grant. / question mark.
Yeah.
Nah, the ones who know will know. But yeah, what are your general thoughts on it?
I thought it was a fun show. I think part of that stems from the fact that like we're back in the era where Marvel is fully exploring sides of the universe that have not been seen yet. It's the sort of excitement I felt when I was watching Guardians for the first time, and it's just like, you know that in the back of your mind that it's somehow connected to the rest of the MCU, but like honestly, I feel like it just stood up by itself as a solid TV show.
Yeah, fair enough. They didn't talk anything about like, what were you doing during the 5 years?
Yeah, like they've been doing that for everything post like Endgame, which like obviously I get it. I get why. And sometimes I enjoy why, because like it's nice to see like an on the ground character's perspective on like these massive events that we'd only seen through the lens of like superheroes before. But it was a refreshing change of pace for them to be like, okay, that thing happened, but like we're not really like we're gonna focus on the plot of this show instead. And yeah, I thought it was well done, fun. Like had like funny moments, serious moments, just like an all around just like solid. I really don't know what more to say about it without delving into the details.
Yeah, so I guess now we can talk about a bit more spoilery stuff, and not too like in depth. It's just I just wanted, or at least for me personally, I don't tend to delve too deep in the plot. I just want to talk a little bit about Mark Spector and his character, because I think that's that's the highlight of the show is like, so this character Mark Spector, he has.
Before you get into that though, I think like the only reference they made to the MCU as a whole is like this one throwaway line from like episode 3 or 4 about Madripoor. I don't know if you caught that.
Yes, I did.
But like, yeah, I thought it was like a really like brave choice to not like shove in your face that this is happening in the same universe as all the other stuff that you know and love. And it actually took the chance on like just believing that the audience would end up invested in the character of Mark Spector. I will say though
that we did say for Eternals we did make the exact opposite argument.
That is true.
But I think that I feel like the distinction is that to be honest, I think it's just the scope of the characters, because like Moon Knight is a like, I mean, to keep it, I mean, okay, if we're going by the comics, the character of Moon Knight could not care less if Thanos was running around wielding 6 stones, trying to blink out half the life in the universe. He'd kind of just be like, I don't know, I'll do whatever Khonshu says. But for like the Eternals, their whole thing is like, oh yeah, we protect the Earth until the Celestials call us back.
Mm-hmm. And I get that I made the opposite argument for Eternals, but I think the reason I made it was because, like, for a movie like Eternals, because it didn't end up standing on its own feet the way Moon Knight did, it kind of...
Really? Because I thought we said, like, we said that it could... we talked about how it could be its own entity. Like, this could be a superhero movie, and I wouldn't, like, think of, like, it being connected to the MCU.
Right. True. Anyway, we're getting off topic again. But, yeah, Moon Knight, Mark Spector.
Yeah, so he's a character with dissociative identity disorder. So initially we start off with the character of Stephen Grant, who he keeps, waking up.
That, I thought, was a really fun choice, to start the show through Stephen's eyes.
Yeah. So, yeah, which is a bit of a... which diverges from the comics, like how it usually goes, But yeah, so, we see this character, Stephen Grant, who has dissociative identity disorder, and he keeps waking, it's something he seemingly struggled with for a long time, at least, from where the show starts, where, like, we see that he has an ankle cuff to his bed, so that, he doesn't,
sleepwalk.
Yeah, so he doesn't sleepwalk, he has, like, sand around his bed to, notify him, like, if he does leave, and, as seemingly, like, for most nights, he's, like, leaving, and, like, it's causing a bunch of havoc, and it's, like, he's disappearing for days on end,
right,
and it's
very,
dropping
dates.
Yeah, I was about to say that, yeah, like, he missed a date, and it's, like, it's supposed to get us to relate to the character, and it's, like, you can only relate to somebody with dissociative identity disorder to an extent if you don't have it. So, I don't know how common the condition is, but yeah. So eventually, we meet his other personality, Mark Spector, who we later discover is the sort of main personality, and that Steven is another personality constructed to
protect Mark from his trauma.
Yeah, protect Mark from his trauma. And so the reason why I say that why I said earlier that the final, like, sort of third act Marvel tropey battle was good for character development is because they sort of highlight sort of throughout the series, Mark and Steven learn to sort of coexist, literally, pretty much, in the same body. And so, by the end of the show, they are able to, kind of actively switch between the two. And so, I think the final act serves to show that, like, how they're able to work together to defeat a common enemy, purely through, like, the character development they went through and, like, how they came together in the end. So I think that's why, like, the final act was nice, and, like, you see, like, although they share the same body, they still have their own unique personalities.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about the final act, yeah, big CGI battle, but it looked good. Like Cairo at nighttime, full moon, just, like, it was pretty to watch.
Yeah, that flying knee, that hit.
Yeah,
literally.
I felt the whole, like, Amit and Khonshu going big and fighting felt a little over the top.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I do think so. I know, personally, I'm no director. I think artistically, it would have been better. I guess let's take a show. If, like, Khonshu and Amit were having a more, like, intellectual, like a Vision Ship of Theseus type, like a very philosophical discussion while their avatars, like, are just scrapping in the back. I feel like that would have been very, like,
the thing is, they did have that a little,
kind
and
of,
then they started scrapping.
Like, it was going the right direction. It was like, because they were making some fair points that, like, because Amit was like, because essentially there's this goddess,
ideological, like, difference between the two.
So there's this goddess Amit whose whole thing is to eliminate evil from this world by judging people before they even like committed anything, like judging them throughout their entire lives. And if you commit something evil, just if you have committed something like an evil act or are going to in the future, like
it's game over.
Yeah, she basically reaps your soul. And Khonshu's whole thing is like he through his avatar Moon Knight only punishes those who have done evil after the fact that they've committed the crime. And so like
so like you can make the argument that Khonshu gives people like the second chance, the benefit of the doubt. Even though when he does exact vengeance, it is often brutal. But Amit is like, yeah, Amit will straight up like reap a soul, even if they've never like in Amit's eyes, like you could judge a baby, and if that baby is gonna become like, I don't know, if that baby's gonna commit like tax fraud one day, it's game over.
Yeah, they were having a really, but like as you were saying, they were having a really good, like sort of verbal, battle, for lack of a better word, before they decided to go big Godzilla X King Kong type beat, like, and they were talking about essentially like what's the difference between the heat, because Amit's like, well, what's the difference between you and me? We both want the same thing, and Khonshu, which is the god of the moon, he's like, yeah, but I only do these things after they've done wrong. Like I don't.
Yeah, one thing though is like, man, I felt it was really goofy how like I get there's the whole like trope, how like the hero will spare the evildoer's life even after they committed wrong because they believe in like second chances or like not taking a life or whatever. But like, bruh, like his reasoning is like, you're beginning to sound just like Amit, and then like Moon Knight like spared Hera's life. Bro, Hera has fully killed like
but I mean
a bunch of people, bro.
If we're being like that, I mean, tie into our last episode where we talked about Aang and Sozin.
Oh,
and,
true,
like,
true.
But anyways, go check out that episode.
Yeah. Shout out Karma Chameleon.
Yeah, but there's something else I wanted to say. Also, this is a bit of a nitpick of mine, but like there's a scene where Khonshu and Amit are fighting in the temple, and I literally slowed this down because I was actually in disbelief at how they let this slide. Khonshu has a body, and then he has a floating skull. He does not have a neck.
Right.
And he has a floating bird skull, but anyways, you don't have to see it. There's a scene where Khonshu charges at Amit, and she choke slams him.
I saw that too.
But he doesn't have a neck. So I really want to know what metaphysical neck she grabbed onto to choke slam this man. I was like, ain't no way. But anyways, that is tangential.
Damn, bro. Khonshu fully gave neck. It's gone.
Ain't no way.
It's gone.
But I thought that was funny when I saw that. I was like, huh? But yeah. So anyways, so I don't know. That was just
overall. I mean, I thought there was some other fun stuff happening like beyond just that. I thought Layla was a fun character. Like obviously not as fleshed out as like Mark Spector, but she still had some like stuff going on, like with her father and everything. The dynamic between Mark and Steven was just like
I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and especially because they're in like the same body. Like actors, you have to be a good actor to pull that off. And Oscar Isaac definitely did that. It's just, I don't know. Like it felt like an enjoyable Marvel TV show, more so than, for me at least, like most of the other stuff that we've seen. I definitely say like I enjoyed watching Falcon and I enjoyed watching Hawkeye, but I feel like Moon Knight was better.
I enjoyed watching Hawkeye, and I think Moon Knight was better than Hawkeye. I did enjoy Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I will say that show does hold a different weight for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say it straight up, being an African American in this country, that show does hold a different weight for me. So I do, I will. I mean, I don't think it is the greatest, like, like Marvel entity ever, like, right? But I do really enjoy it, and I do. Like I said, it's a bit special to me. But like I think Moon Knight was extremely artistic and like just creative, and it was pretty well done in its execution. And I think Marvel, to be honest, wasn't even expecting that because
Yeah.
so I don't know if those of you listening to the podcast have heard, but Marvel like announced on their Twitter, they were like, "Oh, catch the series finale of Moon Knight like this Wednesday," and then they changed it to season finale
Yeah.
because I think they realized there's money here.
Yeah, there definitely is. I would be excited to see Moon Knight come back in other capacities, just like beyond the TV, because eventually he's gonna show up in some movie.
Yeah.
Might be a Spider-Man movie.
Spider-Man
like
X Moon Knight.
Spider-Man X Moon Knight
X Daredevil.
always goes hard.
But yeah, and
have you seen like that? There's like that meme where like Moon Knight's like I'm the Silver Surfer. Like give me all your ketamine so I can go save the world. And Spider-Man's like, Moon Knight, I'm not gonna fall for this again.
Yeah.
Spider-Man X Moon Knight always goes crazy.
And then so they did set up like a season 2 with Mark Spector's third personality, Jake Lockley, which is a mafia man. So
true.
Kinda, but yeah, we'll see where the show goes. I'm excited to see what they do.
One thing I wanted to bring up about the Marvel TV shows at large before we move on to our next topic, Thor: Love and Thunder, is that I don't know how much rewatchability they have, if I'm being honest.
That is true.
I don't think I've ever gone back and rewatched a single Marvel TV show.
I have not.
I mean, like, once you know, like, I think it builds so much on the fact that, like, you don't know what's gonna happen yet, and you're so invested because you're already invested in the MCU.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're on that first watch, you're like, oh, like, what's gonna happen next? And the internet's going wild with theories. But once you know, you're like, all right, cool. And I feel like if you're really hardcore and you want to catch all the Easter eggs or like go frame by frame or something, those are the people who'd rewatch. But by and large, I'm just like cool. I know what happens.
Yeah.
I'm now like caught up. It was an enjoyable show. So I don't know if that's necessarily a problem I don't think it's a problem because I don't think rewatchability is what they're going for with these shows. They're not trying to create like the next Office or like Friends or Seinfeld or something. Like,
Yeah, funny
shows.
You bring up that show. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, true. Shows that people like. I will. Like even this week alone, when I'm like in my room, like eating lunch by myself, and I have nothing better to watch, I will throw on a How I Met Your Mother rerun and just like enjoy myself for like 22 minutes, you know? And that's one way to make money, but I don't think that's what Marvel is really going for with these shows, which is fine. Like, you don't have to. But.
And so, with that, we'll get into Thor: Love and Thunder. So do you want to introduce that?
Yeah, sure. So Thor: Love and Thunder is it is the next Marvel movie coming out after Doctor Strange, right? There's nothing coming out.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Miss Marvel
I don't know.
I don't know for sure. Miss Marvel is the next TV show coming out. And it's coming out at some point this summer. I'm excited for that one. Low-key, we could like do a little bit about it right now, but like not spend too much time on it. But I'm mainly excited for it in the fact that we got our Desi representation, bro. Desi teen out here. I believe the character in the comics is Pakistani. And, like, it's just exciting to see good representation on screen.
Yeah.
The trailer that they dropped had The Weeknd playing in the background, so you already know it's going to be a banger.
Yeah, even though my whole thing is like... Okay, my whole thing with, like, The Weeknd... This is a very, very, very small digression, but, like, people like all of his, like, popular song, like Blinding Lights. There is so much better music
That's
of
facts.
his. And
That's
people
facts.
are like, oh my god, Blinding Lights, it's like so great. And I'm like, you haven't even scratched the surface.
That's facts. Blinding Lights is a banger, though. Like, I will not front. It's a fun song.
It's overplayed, though.
It's
far from his, like, best. So, but
Reminder.
anyways.
We all know where it's at. Reminder. But, yeah, no, it was a fun trailer. And I think, interestingly, they're going PG on this.
For what?
For Miss Marvel.
Oh, okay.
Which is like, or like TV-14, which is, I mean, it's not like that interesting. Like, it's pretty plain to see that like Marvel is now like, it already knows that it has a solid child. I mean, it locked me up when I was like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I've been big fan ever since. So it knows that it gets a lot of popularity with the kids. So the fact that they're making MCU content targeted towards like teens, tweens, it's gonna be fun. And that's what I'm hoping for the show.
Seems
Just like
very cartoony.
yeah, like just and like sure it'll have some detractors, but I think like if it can find that tone and just like stick with it and execute it properly, I think it could be just like a pure-hearted like good old-fashioned fun show.
Yeah.
Which I personally enjoy. So like I'm excited for Miss Marvel, Daisy Gang, you know how it is. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into Thor: Love and Thunder, the next movie. So, 4th Thor movie.
No, my man pulled it off. He got a 4th.
He got a 4th.
He's laughing at Iron Man. I mean, that
Iron
boy dead.
Man.
He laughing at Captain America. That boy old. Like, he's the only one who pulled it off.
He's the only one, yeah. And one thing, so the last time we see Thor, he's fully like going through it, in Endgame.
Yeah.
And he ends the movie showing with the Guardians of the Galaxy and going off on their next big adventure. But I think that's, I mean, where else can they start this movie? I think it has to start there with the Thor and the Guardians, but I think I have faith that Taika Waititi is not going to rest on that for too long.
Yeah.
And he's going to do what he did with Ragnarok, which is another like Thor character centric like movie,
sure.
which is like I'm excited for because I remember Thor 1, it's all fun and games. Like the MCU was still like very, very young, so like they hadn't really gotten everything figured out yet, but it's a solid flick. Even though it introduces Asgard and the cosmic side of Marvel, it's still very much like grounded on Earth. Like most of the action takes place on Earth. Then we don't talk about Thor: The Dark Worlds. And so, but that like put a big damper in the Thor franchise because Thor: The Dark Worlds was like put such a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
Yeah, at least they fixed his eyebrows though.
True. But then Ragnarok came out, and it's just like I remember watching it in theaters and just being like, whoa, just colorful, like fun. Very 80s.
Basically the antithesis to the first two.
Yeah. Like one of the funniest Marvel movies that had come out until that point. Like it was just like
so.
I was like in stitches. But most importantly, it focused on who Thor was as a character. Like the whole time before, like he was kind of just like bland, long blonde hair. Like I am Thor. Like I will do the right thing.
I mean that's kind of is in the comics.
Exactly right. Which is why Ragnarok shook things up so much. He became a lot funnier.
Yeah, and I think it makes up. Like I think without Ragnarok and like let's say Infinity War stayed the same.
Oh yeah.
Like his character. Like I think my favorite segments of Infinity War were like
the ones with Thor.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I think. Well, no. It's not, my favorite scenes are like him and Rocket on Nidavellir.
Yeah.
I think that one was. I like basically leading up to that where he's
basically we're like the scene with the dwarf star where he's like pulling it. That has to be.
But also just like I remember he has this line where he's talking to Rocket and he's like you know I've already lost my brother, my sister, my father, my mother. What else do I have to lose?
Right.
And like it's like just like I don't know. For me, like without Ragnarok, you could not have had that sort of little moment between him and Rocket. And also, I think that the humor adds to that. Like the fact that Taika Waititi made him so like humorous and Ragnarok kind of it paints this sort of surface level happiness, but there's like so much like pain underneath,
right,
and it just makes things so much like deeper. So you know, I think like you know what you're saying, like you said at the end of Endgame, my man's going through it, and I think this whole movie's about healing
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
And like it ties into the title itself, right? It's love and thunder. And I don't know. I'm excited because like I think I'm not gonna say I have enough faith in the MCU to say that they won't go with like some sort of third act battle. Like there has to be some level of. But I'm being honest. Like watching the trailer, there isn't a clear antagonist. Like I don't know who the bad guy for this movie is.
Gore the God Butcher, Christian Bale.
Mm-hmm.
That's Gore the God Butcher.
Yeah, but like it doesn't seem. I don't know. Like it doesn't seem to me that that conflict is gonna be like the main focus of the movie. Like with Infinity War, phenomenal movie, like S tier Marvel, but it's very clear that like the battle with Thanos is at the heart of the movie. With this one, it seems just a lot more Thor, which is I don't know, like maybe that's maybe my take is a little bit off.
I don't think so. I get what you're saying. I think though that like so. Okay, not gonna lie, little spoiler part. So if you guys don't want to tune in for that, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the comics. But if you guys don't want to tune into this and like who Gore is in the comics and the whole story with him, then just skip ahead a little bit. If not, stick around. But essentially, Gore is a character in the comics who belongs to this race. They live on this planet, and they have seemingly the worst luck in the universe. Like just constant droughts. Like poor harvest. The people are starving. They're just it's one of those just a planet that seemingly is anything but thriving, and so they pray to the gods day and night, and nothing changes. And so I don't remember exactly how, but Thor got not Thor, Gore, sorry. Gore got his hands on something called the All Black Necro Sword, which is actually funny enough is a sword who used to belong to the god of the symbiotes, Null the symbiote god, which after the end of Spider-Man No Way Home and the post-credit scene, we'll see we'll see where this is going.
I feel like a lot of the Venom lore was added recently in the comics, so like yeah.
But anyways, he gets his hand on this all black necro sword, and I may be missing some things because it's been a while since I read the story, and also just for the sake of brevity, he basically goes on a quest to kill the gods in sort of a like sign of like you let us down, like why should we worship you when like we pray to you and you do nothing for us, and like you live in like in places like Asgard and Olympia, and like you live these lavish lives drinking ambrosia, and like we suffer. And so he goes and he basically embarks on a quest to kill every god.
I respect it.
Yeah, and so I guess what my point being, right, that like we talked about how like this movie is going to be one focus of like love, and right, so like we talked about Thor is he gonna be sort of on his quest to heal himself. To be honest, I don't really know how Jane Foster's Thor plays a part in this. She's also another character they're introducing into this movie. She is not, she's not in the Gore the God Butcher story. What is in the Gore the God Butcher story is like, it's weird, but like basically Gore fights Thor in the past, the present, and the future. And basically the story culminates with like past Thor, present Thor, and future Thor all teaming up to jump Gore.
Interesting.
And so I think that I feel like their solution to that is instead of doing this trippy time thing and like
it'll kind of feel like No Way Home again.
So and yeah, exactly. Instead of trying to repeat this No Way Home, like because they kind of, I don't want to say they sort of box themselves in there, because like let's be honest, they probably could do that and nobody would care. Because if we're going with the comics, there was the Spider-Verse arc, or like the Spider-Verse comic series, and they also did this basically the same thing. Oh, it's kind of different, but whatever. And so, but because No Way Home was so recent, right? It's not even a year. I think that their sort of solution to that is instead of getting like future Thor, present Thor, and past Thor, just get Thor and Jane Foster.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that the whole like healing and self love thing is like, because like basically, this is a whole nother thing. But basically, there's a another comic book series. So like basically because of the whole trippy time stuff that happens with Gore, basically the whole reason why which I don't know if this will be in the movie. Also spoilers for the comics, but I mean I don't know if this will be in the movie, so potential spoilers for the movie, I guess. That like there's a comic series that's separate from the Gore one where like basically some guy killed Uatu the Watcher and they're trying to figure out who it is. Basically, long story short, it turns out to be Nick Fury. Because Nick Fury is the man on the wall, and he has like it's this whole Shield's secret super agent, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, at the end of this, this sort of comic book run, Nick Fury whispers something to Thor, and Thor becomes unworthy, and we don't find out what it is for like years.
Yo,
and
that's
essentially,
crazy.
and then we find out later what he said was Gore was right, that like the gods are these selfish, like useless, right? And basically that like messed Thor up for a long time. Basically, the whole reason why Jane Foster became Thor was because Thor became unworthy when Nick Fury told him that, and he like lost the hammer, and then my man was going through it, and he went on this whole meditation, self-love type thing, and then like I don't know, eventually got it back because in comic books, things always kind of go back to the status quo. But essentially, applying this to this movie, I feel like the whole, I think that Jane Foster serves the sort of role of helping Thor defeat Gore so that they don't do a Spider-Man No Way Home Part 2. I think that the whole, self-love and meditation is so that he kind of comes to a cathartic ending after Gore questions his entire existence, right?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this is probably gonna be one of the last times we see Thor in the MCU.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Sadly. Yeah.
I mean, well, I've
had a great run, though.
Yeah, from what I've understood, Chris Hemsworth has talked about he loves playing the role. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe he'll show up every now and then.
A bit of a hiatus, we don't know, but yeah, that's the thing. We've talked about this before, that like with actors, it's very uncertain, like how long they can play.
And well, I mean, we could get into this more with the Doctor Strange discussion, but like, I think this is all tying into my theory that like the MCU is really gonna chill using some of its older IPs for a little bit and use it, and like if they do use them to back up and bolster some of the newer characters, because the MCU just isn't gonna survive if people only are invested in like the old crew anymore. It needs to build like investment and like audience like excitement around characters like the Marvels or Moon Knight, or like newer characters. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. Once again, when I heard "Sweet Child of Mine" playing on the trailer, I already knew it's gonna be a banger because that like Guns N' Roses fire. One last thing, like it seemed like the version of Mjolnir, Jane Foster had was the broken version. And somehow it's fixed, so I'll be interested to see how they handle that. But like ultimately, it seems like Thor he's gonna be very averse to fighting. Kind of like where we saw Hulk in Infinity War.
Yeah. I feel like for different reasons.
For different reasons, obviously, but like you see him put down Stormbreaker and say like these hands will now be used for peace. It seems like he's primed to assume his role as the King of Asgard, because Odin's gone, and he's come to terms with. I feel his arc over, like movie 1, he was the arrogant prince, and he had to learn a lesson. We don't talk about movie 2, but movie 3, he was like fully, like coming to terms with like Asgard is a people, not a place, type thing. And it seems like he's gonna try and help rebuild. Do you think they're gonna introduce Olympia in this movie?
Yeah, Zeus is in the trailer.
That's what I thought. So
somebody's been trying to catch a body though. Like Gore's gonna pull up
True.
Start throwing hands.
But yeah, I don't know. Just I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, we will have to see. But
Summer blockbuster.
That's our prediction, or that's my prediction. Anyways, all right, and now, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We have a lot to say.
Yeah, okay. Let's get into it.
All right. I guess general takeaways. One, Sam Raimi, his directing, artistically, amazing. I personally felt like it was very different from like other MCU movies. I feel like it broke the formula. I think that just you see it in like the way like the camera pans, the like. There was a shot where like, even though, because obviously you watch movies on like a horizontal screen. It was basically like the orientation of the camera was like vertically.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And then it like slowly turns. It's just like. It's
just like that fun directorial stuff that makes you realize, oh yeah, there is a person with a voice behind the camera, and not just like the soulless corporate, let's churn out as many Marvel projects as we can. Yeah. Even though that's a part of it, it's always fun to see a director like Taika Waititi or Sam Raimi or Ryan Coogler.
And that's what I will say about like Eternals. Eternals, I think for what it was, I think it was a very like well shot movie. Like there's the shots.
Very pretty.
I think it was very pretty. But anyways, yeah, just like very reminiscent of I think Spider-Man 2 in particular. I think I've particularly noticed Spider-Man 2 a lot in this movie. Just like for example, like the shot where like Spider-Man swinging through the city and then it, like pans like into Doc Ock's eye, like like it was like stuff like that, right? That like very like
the scene where they're explaining dream walking, and there's all those like fade ins and like and the music is like the music like fits the vibe like perfectly. I really enjoyed that sequence.
So and then another thing that you and I both agreed was like, although Sam Raimi is great at like cinematography, dialogue at times can be a bit cheesy, yeah. But I don't think it takes away from the movie. I don't think that we were sitting there like, okay, yeah, like this knocks down points for us, like because I couldn't take it seriously. Like I don't think that's the case.
There were several lines where I'm like, this is an attempted banger tweet. Like this is fully like, like 80s action movie, like trying to make like a one-liner catchphrase. Like. It's campy, but because it's Raimi, I'll let it slide because he got his start doing campy horror. And another thing, boy, does this movie pay homage to horror. Like,
yes, that is true.
There is fully a like Ring homage. When like Wanda comes out of the mirror. And there are like all sorts of like horror elements, like music. Jump scares, like
straight up
brutal kills.
I think this is the most. I feel like this is definitely top 3 most sort of gory, brutal MCU movies. Obviously, it is still it's still safe for teens to watch. It's not rated R.
Yeah, it's still like PG-13. But it's pushing it.
It is.
I was actually talking to Joanne about this yesterday, and she was like. I kind of thought, like, for the, spoilers, Captain Carter moment, she's like, I feel like it would have been more effective if they showed it. Yeah. And I would make the opposite case. I think it was effective in the fact that he didn't show it.
I think it was. I agree with you because, like, I think that the mind is capable of conjuring so many more horrors than, like...
And that's where the horror aspect comes in. It's all, like, psychological, like inherently humans like
we assume the worst.
We have
a tendency to do that.
And there's an element of horror where like the biggest suspense you can build is when you don't show the thing and everyone freaks out trying to come up with their own ideas. And that's like why monster movies are so hard to pull off, because like take Jaws, you don't see that shark for like half the movie. That's true. When you do, it's like the goofiest like animatronic like whatever, like, I mean, obviously technological limitations at the time, but the reason Jaws became such a classic is because, like, the whole time you're freaking out, like, oh my god, like, there's this monster in the depths, like something so fearsome attacking people from the waters. And that's why I think like the Captain Carter like kill was like
Mm-hmm.
so effective, because you know what happens.
Yeah.
In your mind, you can picture it, but he doesn't show it. He just shows her face,
Mm-hmm.
and then he shows the bloody shield, and I was
Yeah.
like, ooh.
Yeah.
And he keeps it PG-13, which is like,
Yeah.
I gotta respect. Only I feel like an experienced director like Sam Raimi could make that choice consciously,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I feel like a lesser director would have been just like, oh, like I want to show the kill, and like let's just make it a rated R movie or something, you know,
Yeah, or like.
or just like gone about it some other way.
Yeah. So I think the other thing we want to probably cover is and sort of more generally is Doctor Strange's character arc. I think
Mm-hmm.
you should talk about this more, because I feel like you took away the sort of the takeaway from it. What his character arc should have been more than I did.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think Doctor Strange's arc was it's an interesting one, because Doctor Strange 1, his whole arc is like becoming strange, and like he sort of goes through the whole movie like arrogant surgeon, whatever, always needs to hold the knife, and he maintains that arrogance and like that's but like he's knocked down a peg, like he's lost the use of his hands, like he gains that humility. One thing I will say that I've noticed about Doctor Strange's portrayal in the MCU, this man has fully had like debilitating injuries to his hands.
Yeah.
And at the end of Doctor Strange 1, they show like his hands trembling to show that like, you know, that is a scar he will carry his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
They never talking about it. Like, it's like straight up it is alluded to once in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where Christine is like, oh, you guys have like injuries on your hands, and she's like showing him an x-ray, but you never see this man's hand shake anymore, which is like obviously no one wants to see like Benedict Cumberbatch like visibly shaking in every scene. It just like wouldn't work. So I understand why, but that like that overcoming that I don't know, handicap, or like overcoming that like crippleness. I don't know if that's disability. I don't know why I'm like blanking on the word. That's like that lends to character strength. But his arc in this movie was fully centered on Infinity War and the choices that he made in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Because he's confronted at the beginning of the movie by that doctor who we see in Doctor Strange 1. You know, oh, you can't freehand this Strange, don't be a hero. And then he fully goes in, like, no, like, MRI, nothing, pulls the bullet out, like, like, whatever. The kind of neurosurgeon we all aspire to be. We see that doctor pull up, and he's like, wait, what? I lost my cats.
And his brother.
Like, kind of comedic, but then, like, I lost my brother, which is like, oh. And he's like, it makes me wonder, was there another way?
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange, his whole thing in Infinity War is, man's like out here meditating. He holds up the 1 in Endgame. Like, there is only one way we beat Thanos in this universe. That's sort of like fixed timeline point mentality that we see in his portrayal in What If, and also points about the multiverse in Loki. But this whole movie's arc, Doctor Strange learns 2 things. He realizes he lost his love with Christine because Christine resents him for, as she says, you always have to hold a knife. Like, you always have to be in charge. And I couldn't put up with that anymore.
Yeah.
So first thing is he learns to sort of chill out and realize, like, it doesn't have to be him who saves the day. And we see that at the very end when, and it doubles back on what he learns from Infinity War, because we see a variant of Strange at the beginning of the movie basically try to siphon off America Chavez's powers for his own, because he realizes, I can control these powers. I can straight up like travel the multiverse by myself with these powers and like put an end to all this by myself. And that Defender Strange is the one who like tries to like off America Chavez at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And early on in the movie, when we meet our usual 616 Strange, he's like, I could control these powers. And then he realizes that freaks out America.
Yeah.
So he, like, tones it back a bit. But at the end of the movie, Wong is like, Strange, there's only one way. Like, you have to take her powers. And America is even like, you know what? I get it. Like, you have to take my powers. But Strange's arc in this movie is like, nah, first of all, there is another way. And secondly, that way is me realizing that even though I could, the better action would be, like, supporting America, making her realize that, like, making her believe in herself and that she could use these powers. And, letting go of the knife. And that's exactly what he does. And America makes the right moves and kicks Wanda's ass.
One thing I will say, though, to give sort of Doctor Strange the benefit of the doubt, sort of, because we talk about in Infinity War, like, there's only one way.
Mm-hmm.
And, like his whole arc is learning that there isn't only one way. However, and this is tying into Loki, I feel like there kind of only was one way, because the whole point of sort of Kang the Conqueror, the one, Immortus, as even though they never name him as such in Loki, but that's who he is in the comics. Basically made it so that there was only one timeline, that there was only, like, one sort of...
Yeah.
And so, like, I will give it to Strange. There probably wasn't any other way, because there was this guy outside of, like, in this just pocket dimension, just controlling everything, just pulling strings. So, like, but, I feel like now that the multiverse is opened up, and, like, there are all these branching timelines, I think that now it's possible for...
Yeah, I agree with you there. And also, another interesting point about his arc, Strange is now at the most powerful he's ever been.
Yes.
And yet he learned a valuable lesson in, like, not letting that power get to him, which sets him up, because we see in this movie that he is not like the other Doctor Stranges from across the multiverses who, like, although this Strange is arrogant, he's not arrogant to the point where he becomes, like, power hungry, and borderline evil, like the rest of the Stranges. So yeah, one thing I also wanted to get into, though, was Wanda's arc. So I was talking to my friend Wilson yesterday, and Wilson criticized, basically, like, he didn't like how Wanda was portrayed, because she ends WandaVision like such a complex and, like, pained character, like, more complex than we've ever seen her in the past. And in this, all we get from Wanda is, like, I want my kids back, and then she goes, like, full, like, evil. I would disagree. Because, I don't know, it's complicated, because the argument that the movie makes for why Wanda is, like, so unilaterally, like, hell-bent on this is that she's corrupted by the Darkhold, right? But, like, this gets into fascinating discussions of, like, how witches are portrayed in media, and I had to, like, read about this for one of my classes this semester, and I could talk about that for a while, but more importantly, I think, like, I don't think Wanda lost a lot of complexity of character here, but I do think some of it had to be flattened for the purposes of fitting this movie into...
I do think so. I think that's what I was thinking. That I would agree with you, but I will say I agree with both takes. I think that between WandaVision and this movie, I think that it can feel like on the surface like her character or like sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Regressed. There we go. However, I think that, like, between being corrupted by the Darkhold and, like, just a mother's love for her kids.
Yeah.
I think
it's
that,
understandable.
I think that essentially it was like she sort of lost the mental battle. Like, she was like, I feel like it was like behind the scenes there was this like, I should just keep moving forward, but I could get my kids, and she kind of struggled with figuring that out for a bit, and she ultimately decided to go for her kids. And I don't know, and then in the end of the movie she learns that
she learns the error of her ways.
Yeah.
Which is, once again, a character moment. Like, there are villains in Marvel movies who never learn that they're wrong. Most notably, what's his name? The Dark Elf guy, Malekith. Yeah. One of the worst villains in any Marvel movie. Like, I loved Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor, but like, Malekith is just out here, bro. He's just like, I'm like a dark evil elf man, and I'm gonna take over the world for no reason, like no motivation whatsoever. And then he dies, and that's it. And it's just like, Wanda was clearly utilized better than that. And, you know, it gets, once again, like, they had to fit such an ambitious, sprawling multiverse movie within 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You're not gonna... I hate to say it. There are very few movies that pull off, like, all those things in such a limited amount of time. Not to say that it's impossible, because as we talked about with Everything Everywhere All at Once, like, what a great movie. Brought it on every single count. I would argue that Doctor Strange had to pretty much tackle the same, like, you know, sprawling multiverse concept, but with the added weight of, like, keeping up the expectations of Marvel Studios. Which, like, I think that's something that Everything Everywhere All at Once, frankly, like, even though it's a great movie, I'm not criticizing it in any way, but it's just a pressure that they didn't have to deal with because it was an indie film. The weight of franchises and expectations and prior character stuff to build off of. It's a lot to balance, and I hate to say it, I think people are just being a little too harsh on the movie without considering. Like,
I think it was great. I think, like, for example, another thing, fight scenes, I think were so creative. Particularly one that you and I both... There's a fight scene in this movie that involves music. If you go and see it, wow. Like,
it was fun to watch.
It was very fun to watch. And also just, like, you know, there was a fight scene at the beginning of the movie that a creature gets stabbed in the eye, and it was not pulling any, like, punches in terms of, like, showing it and whatnot. And then, I guess, you know, we don't have too much time, but just to get into it really quick, cameos. So we've talked about Captain Carter. Black Bolt was also in this movie.
Professor X, played by the one, the only Patrick Stewart.
Shout out to the theme.
The X-Men theme.
Yeah, it actually turned up in this movie.
Monica Rambeau
is Captain Marvel. But forget all those. Our personal favorite, John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic.
That threw me for a loop.
Brown University, represent. Straight up. I don't know. Like, it was nice to see. I think,
like, because everyone, he was by far the fan cast favorite.
Yes, he was a fan cast favorite. I will say though, okay, I think, I don't want to say he was. Okay, and Dhruv and I have both talked about this, but his character was kind of underutilized in this movie. However, we can understand why, because if they introduced a comic accurate Reed Richards, this movie would not be a Doctor Strange movie.
It would be a Fantastic Four movie. This movie
would be not even
that. It would just be Reed Richards.
It would just be a Reed Richards movie, because Reed is a character who always has a plan B, C, D, E, F, and so, you know, it seemed very out of character for him in this movie, the way he confronted Wanda. However, if he did confront Wanda in sort of a comic accurate way,
he would have won.
He would have won, and that would have been that. And so, you know, Reed is the type of character who he can literally travel the multiverse. You know,
I do want to say though, Professor X scene when he was in Wanda's mind.
Yes.
Goated. Like, oh my god, it was, first of all, beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Secondly, the horror. Like, you saw the red smoke coming in, and then.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like.
Really, yeah. Just Professor X was, like, great in this movie. And just, you know, Black Bolt's death was just really creative. All of these sort of, I'll be straight up, all these character deaths are really just dark, but just like you said earlier, just it still maintained the PG rating, but just very, like, left the mind up to interpretation. And so overall, I think the movie was
It's a lot better than the reviews had it out to be.
Yeah, I think so. I would personally say so.
Like, I'm seeing all these, like, second worst MCU movie.
No way.
Like, down there with Eternals and...
No, it's one of the best.
And
I would say it's one of the best.
I don't know. Like, yeah, like, creative. I don't think... Yeah, in terms of creativity, I don't think it deserves to be lumped in with Dark Worlds and Eternals.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's up there.
Well, we both know that we could talk at least another hour about this movie, but we gotta wrap it up because that's a better time. So let's take them out. You've been listening to 101.1 FM WBRULP WFOOLP WVVXLP Providence.
You guys can catch us on the Outta Pocket Podcast website. That's www.theoutapocketpodcast.com, and Outta is spelled Outta.
You can contact us on the website as well. Shoot us an email. Let us know what you think. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning into the podcast today. We'll see you guys next week. And backup plan for your career. We have a buddy who is a firefighter, and he has civil immunity. So, like, basically, like, all you gotta do, like, if you ever need anything done, like, get the government to pay for it. Be like, hey, yo, bro, I need to commandeer this house. Like, I need to take your water, bro. It's like...
Civil immunity.
Civil immunity, it's goated.
Yeah, catch you guys later, and take care.